We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings. We're going to chat with him about what we're seeing in this American League landscape in general. He is based out there in the state of Massachusetts, so certainly have to take a look at the Red Sox with regards to that hierarchy. Can anyone track down the Tampa Bay Rays? What to make out of the wildcard teams? And so much more in the final segment. I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters M, they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we did have ourselves a great day of baseball on Thursday. Let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
An error in the 9th inning was oh so costly for the Cincinnati Reds as they lose one of the higher scoring games that you're going to see, 10-9, the final in this one. As for the Reds, they got down very early because Brady Singer was indeed singing the blues. He gives up 4 runs over the course of 6 innings. From there, you had Julian Garcia, TJ Antone, both give you a scoreless inning, and Michael McGreevy on the flip side for the Cardinals does give up 3 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Ryan Stanek from there gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning as Matt McClain takes him deep for his 12th home run of the campaign. Peter Strzelecki from there, 2 shutout innings, and this was a game that going into the 9th inning was a little bit more calm with the Reds up by a count of 5-4. And then you had a fielding error by Dane Myers. He had the ball in his glove, would have ended the game. And from there, the St. Louis Cardinals take advantage for 6 runs in the 9th. As for Brock and Roll Burke, 600 runs given up in 2/3 of an inning of work. Yeah, Zachary Maxwell have to get the final out of the inning from there. And George Soriano on the flip side gives up 4 runs in the 9th inning himself in 2/3 of an inning. Riley O'Brien had to come in to be able to get the final out. He does eventually close it out, but a wild 9th inning that saw 10 runs out there. The New York Yankees continue to not have a ton of offensive pop in their games, but they were able to provide all the offense in this one. 6-1, they take down the Baltimore Orioles. Kyle Bradish, 5 runs, 3 of which were earned, give it up in 5 2/3 innings. Luis Garcia, 25th home run season. Spencer Jones is 6th, and then Brian Wolfram was able to get 4 outside the bullpen squirrels. Albert Suarez, 1 run allowed in 2 innings, and for Garrett Cole, he was not a lump of coal. Does give up a solo run to Dylan Beavers, his 5th home run in the campaign, but 1 run allowed in 6 innings. Ryan Yarbrough, 3 shutout innings to be able to close the door there. Not a lot of scoring out there in Chicago as for the White Sox shut out by the Atlanta Braves. This was a makeup from June, by the way, 2-0 the final. Grant Holmes, well, he got this one. Holmes, 6 shutout innings, only gave up 1 in. DD Fuentes, Dylan Lee, Raciel Iglesias all lend a scoreless inning. Anthony Kay was more than okay. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings, but nothing behind him as Oscar Brisbane was able to give you 5 outside the bullpen scoreless. Trevor Richards, a scoreless inning. Hagen Smith, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, but can't win if you can't score. The Cleveland Guardians did enough to get the job done as they score 5-2. They take down the San Francisco Giants as for Landon Root, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, give it up in his 5 1/3 innings. Gavin Williams, 11 punch-outs, does give up 2 runs along the way, including a home run to Willie Adames, 20th home run season, but Giants left 9 men on base. Meanwhile, you had Tim Aaron give you an out of the bullpen squirrels. Eric Zabrowski, Hunter Gaddis, Kate Smith, all lend a scoreless inning, and flip side for the Giants, JT Brubaker, unearned run, give it up in his inning of work as Willie Adames, 18th there in the field this season, hurt his cause. Carson Seymour, 8 scoreless inning, and Sam Entages, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. For the Milwaukee Brewers, 7-4. They were able to take down the Seattle Mariners as for the M's, you had George Kirby give up 6 runs in 3 1/3 innings. Bullpen from there wasn't bad as he had a pair of outs out of the bullpen from Jose Ferreira scoreless. Michael Rucker, 2 2/3 innings scoreless. Jonathan Diaz, he would give up a home run in 1 1/3 innings. Garrett Mitchell, 9th home run in the campaign, and Robert Gasser, well, he got gassed in this one early. 4 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. How about the bullpen, though? Aaron Ashby, 2 shutout innings. Chad Patrick, 2 1/3 innings scoreless. Trevor McGill scoreless 9th inning to be able to close that one out. Not a lot of scoring out there in Texas, 2-0. Rangers get the job done after Jacob deGrom had a little bit of scare in his last outing. Yep, he looked great here. No concerns here. 10 punch-outs, 1 hit allotted, 6 shutout innings. Jacob Junis, Chase Silseth, and Jacob Latz all in the scoreless inning. And Andrew Alvarez was fine. Gives up his solo home run over the course of 5 innings of work. Corey Seager, his 13th home run of the campaign. Orlando Robalta, Clayton Beater both give you a scoreless inning. Tom Cosgrove gives up a run in an inning, but highest scoring team in the league in the Washington Nationals. Nothing doing for them. A lot doing for the Angels. They enter in this game averaging about 3 runs per game since the All-Star break, and they put up 18 in this game. 18-3, they destroy the Astros. Peter Lambert, 9 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. Brian King, well, he was not the king here. He gives up 5 runs in 1 1/3 innings. As Zach Neto, 21st home run of the campaign. Denzar Guzman, his 6th home run season. That comes out position player Lamont Wade Jr. gives up 2 runs in his inning work. Tatsuya Mai, 2 runs allowed over the course of 3 innings. And you got Asen Rodriguez, very good start here. 200 runs given up in 7 innings. Blake Weinman from there, he gives up a run in 2 innings. But nice win for the Angels. They're now 22-41 away from home, but hey, they got the job done there. And for the Kansas City Royals, they get the job done here. This by a count of 6-2. If you, like me, had the over, this was a game that was 6-2 in the bottom of the 5th inning, with the 2 worst bullpens in all of baseball being able to hold down the fort. As Gage Jump does get jumped. He gives up 5 runs over the course of 4 innings, and he was taken deep by Bobby Witt Jr. 16th home run in the campaign, and then you had Taylor Rashi give up 1 run in 2 innings. Scott Blewett did not live up to his name, 2 shutout innings. And Randy Dobnak, 4 shutout innings. He walks 4, gives up 6 hits, and he doesn't give up a single run. From there, you did have a pair of runs given up in a third of inning by Carlos Duran, but everyone from there does their part, as you had 1 2/3 innings scoreless from Connor Thomas, and then scoreless innings apiece out of 3 different gentlemen in Nate Pearson, John Schreiber, and Craig Kimbrell. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, they're getting back online. They're 3 games below 500, 5-1. They take down the Tampa Bay Rays, and they win this series, as you had a trio of home runs. Des Cameron, his first of the campaign, that comes off of Ian Seymour. Seymour gives one up to Katsuma Okamoto, 26th home run of the campaign, and Nathan Luke's 7th home run of the season. All come off of Seymour. Gives up 3 solo home runs in 5 innings of work. Casey Lumina, 2 runs allowed in 2 innings, and Chris Roycroft, 2 shutout innings. Shane Bieber, he had a fever for getting outs. 1 run allowed over the course of 7 innings. Now, 3 earned runs of fear allowed in, I believe, all but 2 out of his last 8 outings, so he's running into form. Spencer Miles, Louis Varland, they both give you a scoreless inning. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, under rate is approaching 51%. 954 unders, 918 overs, and if math serves me correct, I believe we have now had 45 pushes along the way. Favorites on the money line hitting at 56.1%, 1,047 and 819, and among those favorites, well, it's now becoming a very whopping number. 264 have failed to cover the run line. Last 30 days in baseball, we have seen 70 fail to cover the run line. 221 and 173 on the money line for favorites. Meanwhile, the over rate is just 45.15% in this time span. 215 unders, 177 overs, and 9 pushes along the way. Meanwhile, last 7 days in baseball, 50 unders, 44 overs, and a push along the way, with favorites on the money line hitting at 57%, 53, and 40, but among those favorites, 16 have failed to cover the run line. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we do chat it up with one of our good friends, Tanner Kern of DraftKings, right here on the Baseball Betting Show, with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN family of podcasts.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got our good friend Tanner Kern aboard. He does such great work over at DraftKings, taking a look at a little bit of everything. When it comes to basketball season, he does a great job there. I know that he is getting set for what is going to be an incredible football season. He is absolutely incredible on the baseball front, and when it came to the World Cup, he was an ace on that front as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at his first and last name, Tanner Kern. That is Kern on the last name, and then an underscore after that. And Tanner, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Always a pleasure.
Always great to be able to have you aboard. And Tanner, just what are you making out of the American League right now? Because it just feels like it's a big, giant, wackadoo league in general, where it feels like right when we have something figured out, everything turns on its head. And we might get, at the very least, one team that's below 500 in the postseason. And at this point, it might actually be two.
Yeah, when I was coming on the show earlier, at least during the Red Sox run, it was still unknown what that team was going to be. And Boston's starting to establish themselves as that second wild card team, at least. The New York Yankees 9 games up on that final wild card spot. Boston's 5.5 games up. Then you have the Minnesota Twins, who are 2 games under. For a while, it looked like Toronto was going to be the team to take the jump. They're still 3 games under 500, only a half game out. So I expect the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox obviously to get in the playoffs in that case, and they're going to be over 500 playing against each other. The biggest question is, where is that game going to take place, at Yankee Stadium, or is it going to be at Fenway Park? We'll find out probably in the next week or so when those two teams face off. That'll be a good indication of where that's going to be, unless the Yankees just run away with that first wild card spot right now. And then, if that final spot, there's a ton of teams in the mix, but it's teams that have also sold. Like you look at the Baltimore Orioles, they're a game and a half out. Detroit Tigers, game and a half out right now. Still have a lot of teams in front of them, but those are 2 teams that got rid of some star players. The Toronto Blue Jays did a soft sell. Texas Rangers are a team that we've talked about it, Greg. They're going to make the climb, just haven't seemed to do it yet. So it's really anyone's guess who could be in that final wild card spot.
Yeah, it's been wild to say the least with what we've gotten this season in general in baseball. And speaking of the Boston Red Sox, just what do you make out of them right now? Because obviously they're no longer a team that has won 27 out of their last 30 games. We knew that was not going to last forever. And they did have a little bit of a skid after that, which I feel like we were both going to speak the same language here, that we're not surprised by that. But feels like now things are back online, and now this is really the true Boston Red Sox team. Not the super cold one, but not the super warm one as well. I think what we've seen over the last week is a little bit more of what we can expect out of them moving forward.
I think they're a team that, there's really no incentive for them to play super hard right now. Obviously, want to get in the playoffs, but when you look behind you, the objects in the mirror are much further away than anyone would have thought at this point in the season. And you look ahead of you, you get the New York Yankees. I think for Boston, they're content with going to Yankee Stadium if they have to in a 3-game series, and they're content with the Yankees coming to them. So this is a spot where the Red Sox right now, very beat up across the board. Everyone's dealing with injuries, but the Red Sox seem to be really hit with them. You saw it yesterday. They didn't really have the answer out of the bullpen. You don't have Slayton anymore and Whitlock. 2 guys on the injured list. Hopefully those are short stays. Roman Anthony is starting to ramp up. He's at his rehab stint and playing really well there, so you might get some help. But pitching, which has been the strength of the team, is definitely taking a hit. Jake Bennett's kind of taking a step back. We'll see how he throws on Friday night. But a lot of questions around this team right now. They're a playoff team. How far they go, that's, I think, comes down to what does Roman Anthony do when he comes back, and how healthy is the pitching staff. If Roman Anthony plays halfway like he did last year when he was on, and the pitching staff gets healthy again, I think they are a team that could win the American League with ease. But if they're not, then, they're probably a early exit against the New York Yankees.
Yep, and it is going to be interesting to see what we get out of Jake Bennett, but it looks like he might be starting here a little bit later on, because right now I'm seeing Sonny Gray on the board for Friday. Now, that's always subject to change, and you just never know with these pitching changes, especially with a travel day for a lot of these teams on Thursday. But how do you take a look at not just the game for Friday, but the overall series? Because if we do get Sonny Gray here on Friday, his swing and miss stuff is actually down from past years, but he's been plenty effective, and in my opinion, one of the most reliable pieces for the Red Sox this season.
Yeah, he's been really good. There's been some up and some down runs along the way, but he's been solid. And honestly, where Jake Bennett is right now, if I had to pitch a guy to go up against Logan Webb, who I believe is on the mound, I'd rather take Sonny Gray. I think that cancels out, because we've talked about Logan Webb's struggles on the road this season, or not, just in general. This season, he's actually been pretty consistent home and road splits. In the past, Logan Webb on the road has been a nightmare. So I think the Giants will be able to come out and play. Plus, you have the return of Rafael Devers in this series. You have to think he's going to hit a home run at some point. So I like Sonny Gray matching up with Logan Webb a little bit better, and we'll move Jake Bennett back in the series.
Yep, absolutely. As our good friend Tanner Kern, he does such amazing work over at DraftKings. He's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and that no doubt is going to be a fun one. And I think this one is going to be interesting as well, because the Tampa Bay Rays, they still are maintaining that top record out there in the American League, but they've got a Freddie Peralta problem. But going all the way back to his time with the New York Mets, in his last 10 starts, he has went 45 innings, and he has given up 45 runs, 39 of which have been earned. you don't need to be a baseball mathematician to know that that's not good, to say the least. And Trevor Rogers, since the beginning of the month of June, he's got a sub 275 ERA. This is a matchup of what we saw on Sunday, a rematch of that. Right now, the Orioles are like minus 125, minus 130 favorites, and until I see a good start or two out of Freddie Peralta, I just can't back him.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat there. You look at just what the Rays have been this season, overall very, very impressive. But when you have a guy like Peralta on the mound, it might not end up very well for you. So, looking at this game, for the Rays, obviously, Peralta hasn't been good, but Trevor Rogers, like you said, 8-8, 4.15 ERA with the 1.25 WHIP. And when you look at Baltimore, 32-32 at home, they've been pretty good. They're also, they've had a rough stretch lately, but before this, going back to the last Rays series, they looked extremely comfortable against them. They took 3 of 4 from the Rays. Even the game that they lost, it was a 7-6 loss. So we'll see. They got momentum against the Rays. I think they can keep that going. I would lean towards Baltimore, at least early in the series. Losing Adley Rutschman, I know he was hurt when he left, but that hadn't seemed to impact them that much. They've actually played pretty decent baseball over the last week or so.
Yep, it is going to be fun to take a look at that one, as for the Orioles, even though they were sellers at the trade deadline, they've been able to play some really good baseball. And when they were down in Tampa last week, they were able to take 3 of 4 in that series. So these are two teams that have seen a lot of each other. And how about if we take a look at what I think is going to be the marquee game of the day? And this might be the marquee game that we see like in the rest of August. We've got the Braves and the Brewers with the 2 top pitchers for my money in all of baseball right now, Chris Sale and Jacob Mizorowski going at it. Total 6.5. Brewers minus 140 to minus 150 favorites. Want to get your thoughts here, because getting plus 125 to plus 130 is very enticing for Chris Sale. Fading Jacob Mizorowski has not been enticing, and I mean, it's hard to get a 6.5 to the under, but these are the best 2 pitchers, like I said, in all of baseball. Want to get your thoughts here, because man, regardless of if you bet this, how you bet this is going to be a spectacle.
Yeah, I'd always be taking the plus money team here. You got a guy like Chris Sale on the mound, 12-8, 2.16 ERA, whip right around 1. So good this season, not as good as Jacob Mizorowski, but still, I mean, pretty close. The whip's a significant difference for Mizorowski. He's been awesome. But the Braves have the experience to at least nickel and dime him and have a chance to get him out of the game, I think. That's kind of what I would say here. I fully expect the Milwaukee Brewers to win, but it's hard playing minus 150 money lines in general, especially for a series that should be very, very close. Atlanta does lead the regular season series. It's, they had a 3-2 win and a 4-3 win. And then the Brewers had 9-4 wins. So the Brewers had the one blowout of the season series so far. I just think for the value, Braves 33-30 on the road here. You're only 4 games worse than the Brewers on the season. Both guys win when they take the mound. I would take the plus money team.
Yeah, this is going to be a really, really fun matchup, and this could go a long way in terms of deciding the Cy Young. Jacob Mizorowski, obviously leader in the clubhouse there, but I mean, a big start here from Chris Sale. You just never know there. So this is going to be a fun one. That's actually a day game as well. So for those of us that love day games, boy, that is a real treat for us. And then I think this one is going to be interesting as well. We've got the Reds on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We just saw the Diamondbacks out there in Boston, and even without Ketel Marte, they were still putting up runs. Right now, we've got a total of 8.5 with Eduardo Rodriguez going against Nick Lodolo. Want to get your thoughts here, because I think that Rodriguez is due him for a little bit of regression, but I just haven't loved what I've seen out of Nick Lodolo, and I think that this could be a good spot for a sneaky over, even though that Rodriguez ERA is quite low.
Yeah, you could lean over on it. I mean, the Diamondbacks did find a way to put the ball in play, against the Boston Red Sox, especially the last game of the series. But, that was also caused by just dumb mistakes from Boston. I think a lack of pitching depth. But when I watched the Reds, I focused a lot on the Reds this week just because I was watching their series that they played against the Cardinals, just because it was pretty much a lot of day games in that series, so there's a lot to watch. The Reds had a collapsing defeat today, like just a draining defeat. You drop the ball in the outfield, and that should have been the third out and ends the game, and then they end up losing that one. So I don't know how they're going to be able to respond. Now you got to go on a West Coast road trip after being at home. It's a really tough spot for them. I don't know if their bats are going to be good, because right now, after how they lost yesterday, they're either going to be really hungry or they're just ready to go home. And at this point, you're 6 games under 500, you're out of the playoff picture. So you got to take the mental side of things into it. I just don't think the Reds are going to have a lot in this spot. Even though Eduardo Rodriguez, saying he's due for some regression, I still think the Diamondbacks returning home, finding a way to salvage a series against Boston are definitely the play here. And this is one where I would be willing to play a minus 150 money line.
Yep, and I'm right there with you. I think that Eduardo Rodriguez gives up some runs, and if you had the Cincinnati Reds on Thursday, and I did, yeah, that was rough to say the least. So I am very much speaking your language there, my friend, as we do have Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings, joining me on the baseball betting show. And then I think this one is interesting. The Mets low-key have been playing a little bit of spoiler recently, and now they've got Kodai Senga coming out as their closer, which I never thought we would see that. They're about plus 130 underdogs here against the White Sox, with Sean Burke going against Sean Manaea. Want to get your thoughts here, both in this game, and if I can't believe I'm saying it, there might actually be some Mets value here moving forward with them actually seemingly playing a little bit better without Juan Soto here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, they're finding ways to win games. It's been impressive. They've won, I don't have the number here, it's at least 4 of their past 5, but if you go back to the Pittsburgh series, the Cleveland series, really, I mean, since August 4th, they've only lost 4 times since August 4th, so been really good recently. I don't think there's any value in terms of the future market unless you got a win total before they went on that run. Who knows, maybe a team that gets super hot, and probably not, and there's probably no chance they can do that, but you just never know in baseball. Yeah, probably if you're looking future market wise, I would say looking at a win total for them, looking at, place, a certain place finish in the NL East if you think they can go on a little run. But yeah, in this game specifically, I would say I like the Mets here. I think for the plus money with how the Mets have been playing, it's kind of that streakiness that we looked at with like the Boston Red Sox, for example. You're getting a plus money team that's just finding ways to win games. Manaea on the mound, 1.32 whip, not great, but the White Sox are a team that's really exceeded expectations this year. They're 5 games over 500, coming off a rough series against the Cubs overall with how they lost some of those games. I think this is a spot where I don't mind the plus money with the Mets, just playing spoiler. I mean, pretty much the team knows the season's over and they're not really playing for anything. They're just playing to have fun, and that seemed to translate to some wins lately.
Yep, it's a young and hungry team that has actually been able to give us a little bit of something, and for the Mets, don't bet on them to make the playoffs or anything like that, but certainly day-to-day value, I do think that it's presenting itself, and we've got ourselves a great slate here on Friday, Tanner, all 30 teams in action, a few TBDs out there on the card, but anything else that's really standing out to you?
There's a lot of fun games to watch. I mean, obviously, paying close attention to the Red Sox and the Giants, but looking at that St. Louis versus Philadelphia game, Hunter Dobbins, former Red Sox, going up against Jesus Luzardo. Philadelphia Phillies catching steam here, 11-5, 3.23 ERA with the 1.15 whip for Luzardo. Cardinals are a team that can play spoiler pretty easily. I think they're going to come back to earth a little bit after getting lucky, though, in the series against the Reds. And then we'll also be paying attention to that Angels-Rangers series, which is one not a lot of people are talking about. For Texas is a team that underwhelming expectations so far this year, 3 games under 500. You get a chance to make up some games against the Angels here. Mackenzie Gore on the mound, going up against Reed Detmers, who's been pretty good for the Angels. That's one that should be very entertaining if you're looking for the Rangers to make the playoffs.
Yep, and the Rangers, they stubbed their toe last week when they were going up against the Angels and the Athletics, so these are not gimme games for them, even though, well, they probably should be gimme games, so I'm going to be very fascinated by those. And my friend Tanner, I know that you're doing a great job on so many different fronts, whether that be getting set for the football season, taking a look at basketball, baseball, so much more. So let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, with football season coming up, actually doing a lot of content with Green 80 Sports, so just at Green 80 Sports across all social media platforms. That'll be for all football content, and then baseball, you can find me on my personal socials at Tanner Kern across the board, and then on the DraftKings social pages pretty much every day, giving picks and analysis and all that good stuff.
And Tanner doing such an incredible job on so many different fronts, and every single time he joins me, lends amazing insight. So a big thanks to Tanner for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Easton Family Podcast. Tell me next it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. it is always a pleasure to be joined by our guy Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Tanner for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games also in time order. Any interleague games, those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy, and thank goodness gracious, we do actually have ourselves a day game today. So yay, verily there, as we start things off with that day game. 9:01, 9:02 on the card. It is the Brewers, and they are going to be playing us to the Atlanta Braves. It is going to be the Miz, Jacob Mizorowski, going for the Brewers, and Chris Sale, hopes to not sell, for the Atlanta Braves. Right now with the Braves, they are anywhere between plus 123 to a plus 130. Meanwhile, minus 138 to minus 150. That number on the Brewers. Total on this game is 6.5 unders, minus 110 to a minus 120. The overs between even and minus 110. If we could get down to a minus 135, I'll be looking at the Brewers, a plus 135 or higher. The Braves, so right now, wait and see mode. I want to see where this goes a little bit more. When it's all said and done, I should be able to get a minus 135 with the Brewers, but again, that's all going to be based on closing numbers, and I do like this total to the over, even though you've got two dominant pitchers. As a matter of fact, these are the two guys that are your front runners for the Cy Young Award. Chris Sale has been able to give you over 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Jacob Mizorowski over 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for the Miz, he's only giving up 2 walks per 9 innings. He has given up a few more home runs than Chris Sale. Sale, 0.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 0.8 home runs per 9 innings on the flip side for Mizorowski, but the over 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 1.75 ERA, that does give him a little bit of a leg up. And I do have to say this about Chris Sale, 1.65 home ERA, 2.69 ERA on the road, but we've also seen Mizorowski now give up 4 home runs over the course of his last 4 starts, so that does have me a little bit more tepid there. The Atlanta Braves are 8th in the big leagues in terms of run creation. Brewers are top 5, with the Brewers doing so with their small ball. They're actually dead last in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at basis. Lone guy that has been able to give you over 20 home runs this season has been Jake Bauers, and he's done a good job moving line, being able to give you about a 375 or so on base, but no doubt about it, I think that this is such an intriguing situation with having a guy in Bryce Terang who's able to give you about a 355 on base. Gary Sanchez, he's up to about a 366 on base. Jackson Chourio, he, along with Terang, are both give you 15 plus home runs. Christian Yelich had a home run in that series against Seattle. He's been a little bit rough, and you have to figure that he's going to straighten out a little bit. And then for the Atlanta Braves, Michael Harris, Ozzy, Albies, pair of guys with 20 plus home runs this season. You've been able to get good production on Matt Olson, who's been able to give you 36 plus home runs as well. Getting back around, Acuna Jr. is big. Now for the Braves, have cooled down a little bit with their offense, but they've still been consistent. They've scored 4 plus runs in 13 out of their last 20 games. They could use a little bit more out of Mike Yastrzemski along with Austin Riley, both hitting below at 230. Lane Thomas hasn't been too impressive, but you still have been able to get good production on Drake Baldwin, 355 on base. He's over 20 home runs. And these two teams have been 1 and 2 in terms of bullpenning rate in the National League as well. For the Braves, you've got the Dillons, Dylan Lee, Dylan Dodd, the Oddfather, DDA Fuentes, Racy Iglesias. I'll give you a sub 325 ERA. Brent Suter's not a guy that I'm necessarily bullish on, but he's a wily veteran that still should be able to help out this team. And then additionally, a guy like a Victor Medeiros has actually been relatively solid in this bullpen. And then on the other end of things, for the Brewers, they are dealing with the injury to Abner Uribe, but Chad Patrick has been a nice long guy. They've got DL Turned-Up Hall, who's back in the fold as well, so that is huge for this team, and I do think that you're going to continue to have Trevor McGill and all those guys be able to step up in this bullpen as well. So I think that this is a very fun game, to say the least. It's a nice day game, and I did set my total here more around a 7.1, so even at a 7, I'd be looking at the over, and like I said, if we could get down to a minus 135 with the Brewers, we'll be looking there. Anything above a plus 135, looking at the Braves, that'll be determined by overnight line movement. 903, 904 on the card, it is the Phillies. They are going to be playing us to the Cardinals, as we know that Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils. To be determined for the Cardinals, this game is off the board. As of right now, it's looking like Hunter Dobbins is going to be able to get the start, and If that's the case, I set the Phillies at a minus 182, so minus 181 or better would be looking there. Or if I'm able to get plus 112 or better, would be looking at the run line, would need at least a plus 183 to take a shot here on the Cardinals. And then with this total made mine an 8.6, so 8.5 or less. Do like the over a 9 or higher. I'm going to be in on the under. For Acelus Cesaro, just really big wackadoo home and road splits. And the same goes for the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals are a top 5 team in all of baseball in terms of run scoring away from home with over 5 runs per game. They are right there last in the National League in terms of run scoring at home with less than 3.85 runs per game at home. And when it comes to Acelus Cesaro, 3.23 ERA, 2.76 fielding independent. He's had a nice season, 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's only giving up about 0.7 to 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. But again, you've got a guy who's been significantly better when he's been away from home. 1.95 ERA away from home, 2 home runs allowed in 78 and a third innings. And at home, 4.63 ERA. He's giving up closer to 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, so that's intriguing. And then for Hunter Dobbins, he's been presentable for the St. Louis Cardinals, but probably not as good as his ERA would indicate. Right now, he's supplying a 3.42 ERA, but closer to a 4.33 fielding independent, as he is giving up 1.3 home runs, 3.8 walks per 9 innings. His strikeouts are much higher than they were with the Red Sox last year, about 8.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and both of these bullpens are in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Now, Jonathan Bull and Yohan Duran for the Philadelphia Phillies both have been able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA, but we're seeing a Ryan Kerkering start to regress for this team. Caleb Killian's on the injury list, and I wasn't even bullish on that acquisition to start with. And Jose Alvarado's just awful. Ever since the drug suspension last year, that guy has not been the same. And on the flip side for the St. Louis Cardinals, they don't have Matt Savanson on the roster anymore, and that's a good thing, but Ryan Stanek is still supplying a 4 ERA. Caleb Ferguson, he's been all over the place. Riley O'Brien has been okay, but Peter Strzelecki, Luis Castillo, these guys have not been very reliable. Justin Brule's actually been solid, and when it comes to this lineup of the St. Louis Cardinals, Jordan Walker, he's leading the way with 26 home runs. He's going to get well over 100 RBI this season. Then Alec Burleson, J.J. Weatherholt, Devon Herrera, I'll give you at least a 348 on base, with Burleson up to 21 home runs this season. Could use a little bit more from the bottom of the fold. Blaze Jordan with a 243 batting average, but a 271 on base. Pedro Paz a 256 on base. So these guys need to give you a little bit more. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they've been significantly better with their offense when they've been at home rather than away from home. At home, it's a unit that gives you in that neighborhood about 4.8 runs per game. And when they're away from home, they're right there at the bottom of the National League themselves with right around about 4.1 runs per game. I think that the Mets are the only team that's averaging fewer runs per game when they are away from home, but you do have Kyle Schwarber give you 37 Schwarber bombs this far this season, and then Bryce Harper continues to move the line, give you about a 380 on base. He's up to 25 home runs, 17 home runs apiece out of Brandon Marsh and Trey Turner's really been heating up. Even Alec Bohm is starting to give you a little bit more. He's up to 14 home runs. Justin Crawford is moving the line, so for the Phillies, they've been able to rectify some of those offensive issues, so the defense still a little bit strange as well. So fascinating circumstance here. 8.5 or less in on the over 9 or higher, the under for the Phillies, plus 112 or better. Looking at that run line, plus 183 or better, the Cardinals money line. 9-5, 9-6 on the card. It is the Nationals. They are going to be on the road against the Marlins, as we've got Ryan Gusso, yes, May Gusso to a start from him, and Brad Lord says, oh Lord, to another start for Washington. Washington plus 123 to plus 130 underdogs, minus 135 to as high as minus 154 on Miami. 8 is the total in most places, with the over at a minus 120. The under is at an even. Seeing some 8.5s out there as well. Under is minus 120 to a minus 125. The over is between even and plus 105, and I made my total in an 8.8, so I'm going to be in on the over for the Washington Nationals. While this is a banged-up team, they are still number 1 in the big leagues in terms of run creation, and you do have C.J. Abrams, who's been supplying 29-plus home runs, so it's been an incredibly impressive season for him. And some of these mix-and-match guys, like Nasim Nunez, he's been able to give you 40 stolen bases. While he doesn't give you any pop whatsoever, that's still been incredible. You've got Dallin Lyle give you 15 home runs. Now, Abrams did get the day off yesterday from the starting lineup, so that's something that you do want to note, but should be good to go for this series. You still have some of these guys like Brady House, who's able to give you a little bit of pop. Still need more out of Dylan Cruz, but Andres Shapiro has been able to come along for the ride a little bit as well. And for the Washington Nationals, they're right there with the Colorado Rockies in terms of worst bullpens in the National League. These guys like Jake Bird, Max Kranick, posting up an ERA well above a 4 has been an issue. Tom Cosgrove, about a 3.75 ERA, and the expectation here is that you get a start/open out of Brad Lord, who's been solid. He's been able to give you a sub 3.75 ERA. Not going to necessarily light up the radar gun, but he's been solid and will be on. Most likely going to be the bulk guy. You'll look at him, and he has went 3+ innings in 2 out of his last 3 total appearances. Now, he did come in for an inning on Wednesday, so perhaps this is going to be a little bit of a piggyback situation, and maybe he doesn't go as long as he has the last few times out, but in a Washington Nationals uniform, he's been pretty solid overall for the season. Sub-3.25 ERA dating back to his time with the Cleveland Guardians. He's got over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings and only 5 walks in 28+ innings, so he's actually been very good for this team, but outside of he and Lord, this is an absolutely awful bullpen. Meanwhile, for the Miami Marlins, they have slipped up with their bullpen, with having Calvin Fauché posting up well above a 4 ERA. P. Fairbanks has been terrible for this team, and for the Miami Marlins, they do find themselves in the bottom 6 in all baseball in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis, and trading away Liam Mix did not help out with that, but what they are able to do is do a nice job in terms of swiping bags, as you got so many guys like Jacob Marcy, Xavier Edwards, Otto Lopez, Asterio Ruiz, all with at least 19 stolen bases. Now, Marcy's hitting at 205, but Edwards 375-ish on base. You've been able to have Asterio Ruiz give you 365 on base. Otto Lopez is hitting above a 300, and then your main home run hitter is Roberto Hernandez. He's been able to supply 18 home runs. They are dealing with some injuries. Kyle Stowers is back out of the fold as well, but been able to get a little bit of something out of Joe Mack. So fascinating circumstance with the guy in Ryan Gusso, who I believe has actually pitched a little bit better than what the ERA would indicate. You'll look at the overall season numbers, and a 4.70 ERA is not going to knock your socks off, but 1.3 home runs, 2.3 walks per 9 innings, a 4.09 fielding independent, and he has given up 200 runs or fewer in 4 of his last 5 starts. Do think that you get some scoring here, like the over, so I might tell it at 8.8. For the Marlins, set them at a -147. Want to go up to -146 on the money line, 907, 908 on the card. The Reds, yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're under the road against the Diamondbacks as Eduardo Rodriguez goes for the Snakes, and you've got Nick Lodolo on the Lolo for the Cincinnati Reds. Reds do find themselves as a underdog here. You're going to be catching between +122 to a +130 with them. -140 to -150 is that number on the Snakes with an 8.5 total. Over is -110 to even money. The under is between -110 to a -120, and maybe my total 9.3. I'm going to be in on the over. I know that for the Reds, they've been a bottom 10 team in terms of run creation this year, but Eduardo Rodriguez just appears so due in for regression here. 271 ERA, but a much higher 383 fielding independent, and he's getting 6.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, but about 2.8 walks per 9 as well, so you've got a lot that is happening there, and he's backed up by a bullpen that has been okay this season, 16th in terms of ERA, and I actually think that the Diamondbacks bullpen is a bit better than what the ERA would indicate because they had Paul Sewald for much of the season. They DFA him, and he was just absolutely awful. Like, look at these mix and match guys like Abraham Garcia, Juan Murillo, Gerald Carrillo, throwing their Jonathan Loaizaga. These are all guys that are posting up a sub-3 ERA for the team. Even Kevin Ginkel, even with a 3.86 ERA, he hasn't been bad for the team. Ryan Thompson is starting to regress, but all in all, it's a solid bullpen. Now for the Diamondbacks, are without Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, or their top home run hitter. He's right now on the restricted list, and Nolan Arenado's dealing with injury, so really the lone guy in the lineup that gives you over 10 home runs this season is Corbin Carroll, 346 on base, 18 home runs, but you have plenty of guys who are able to get on base. Geraldo Perdomo, about a 355 on base. I mean, we did see it in that series against the Red Sox. Even without Marte, the offense was fine. Ryan Waldschmidt is hitting about a 280. Now, need more of these guys like Adrian Del Castro towards the bottom of the fold, Tim Tawa, guys like this have not been amazing, but hey, they're moving the line. And on the flip side for the Cincinnati Reds, you do have a trio of guys who have been able to give you at least 20 home runs this season. JJ Bleday, Cousin Sal Stewart, along with Ellie De La Cruz, and Eugenio Suarez also gives you quite a few bombs, but he's been hitting hardly above the Mendoza line of 200, so that's been an issue. You just need more of these guys like TJ Friedel, Brian Hayes, I mentioned Suarez, Michael Taglia, a lot of guys at the bottom fold hitting at 215 or lower, throwing their Matt McClain as well. And for the Reds, this team is a bottom 6 team in terms of bullpen ERA. TJ Antone, Brock and Rollberg have been able to give you a sub-350 ERA, but like Sam Mole, Pierce Johnson, Emilio Pagan, these guys have not been very good. Chase Petty, I feel petty about the fact that I have to point out that he's not good. And for Nick Lodolo, 452 ERA, but a 530 fielding dependent. To his credit, over his last 5 starts, 200 runs or fewer allowed in 4 out of those 5, but spent a lot of time on the injured list as well. Since coming off the injury list, 3 home runs allowed in 9 innings. Lucky that he's only given up 4 runs in that time span. I do think that the Diamondbacks get to him good. So, like the over sub, I told 9.3 for the Diamondbacks, willing to go up to a -159 on that money line. 909, 910 on the card. The Pirates are going to be on the road against the Dodgers as Yoshinobu Yamamoto goes for the Dodgers and Bubba Chandler for the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates, shock, surprise, surprise, sizable underdogs here, and between +190, seeing as good as +$2 out there. minus 219 to a minus 245 is that number on the LA Dodgers. 8 is the total. Over is minus 110 to a minus 115. Under is minus 105 to a minus 110. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Dodgers, between minus 102 to minus 110 is that number, and willing to go up to a minus 108. I'm going to be in on the Dodgers on the run line. I would have needed at least a plus 214 to take a shot on the Buccos, and I just don't think that we're going to be able to get there. Now, for Bubba Chandler, he has been better recently, but I still have a lot of issues with the walks. In terms of walks per 9 rate, he is still hovering right around about a 4.7, and he's only getting 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Doing a good job inducing soft contact, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, and to his credit, 7 earned runs allowed over the course of his last 5 starts. So he has really been better. I think that he's given up 300 runs or fewer in now 8 out of his last 10 starts, but now you go up against the Dodgers lineup that I recognize that since the beginning of the month of July, hardly averaging above 4 runs per game, and they do average a full run per game less when they're at home rather than away from home, but I do feel like that series against the Colorado Rockies was able to ignite them. You still have Shohei Ohtani, give you a 27 plus home runs. His on-base percentage is just below a 400. Kyle Tucker has just been a lost cause this season, but hey, you've been able to get really good production out of Andy Pages along with Max Muncy, 20 plus bombs apiece, with Muncy supplying about a 342 on base with his 25 home runs. Mookie Betts, I know that it's not been a great season for him overall, but after a really bad start to the season, he's been a little bit better recently. Again, I'm not saying that he's right now laying the world on fire or anything like that, but you take a look at the last 30 days, and he's been able to give you some home runs. If you look more around the last 2 months, he's been hitting above a 250, and last 15 days hitting above 300. So it does feel like he's starting to round back into form a little bit more for the Dodgers bullpen. They've been about league average in terms of their ERA because they are dealing with some injuries. Having Blake Trinan out of the fold, that's been hurting them. Edwin Diaz is back on the injury list, which honestly, anyone not named Edwin Diaz has been a better option than Edwin Diaz as far this season, but Rock and Roll Stewart also on the injury list. Tanner Scott has been really your main guy, sub 235 ERA. You've had Jack Dreyer, Edgar Enriquez be able to give you sub 325. Even a guy like a Will Klein has been solid, but now he's dealing with a little bit of ailment as well, so it's a banged up team. But Yoshinobu Yamamoto, even though for his career he's actually been significantly worse at home rather than away from home, he's been solid this year. Swing and miss stuff is down. Last 2 years was over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. This year hovering more around about 8.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, but still he's posting up a ERA that is a 260, fielding dependent a little bit higher than that. Again, a sub 215 career ERA away from home, closer to 335 at home. And for the Pirates, this is a lineup that still finds themselves in the top 7 in terms of run creation. It has been much more shaky since the All-Star break, but now you're getting back. Oneil Cruz had a home run in the previous series. Brandon Lau, he's been able to get loud. It's about a 250, supplying 27 home runs, and then a lot of guys that are able to get on base for you, as Brian Reynolds is right around about a 370 on base. Jake Magnum, Nick Gonzalez, they're hitting in the neighborhood about a 300. Spencer Horowitz, he's right around about a 360 to a 370 on base as well. So, like the over sub my total at 8.3, minus 108 or better in on that Dodgers run line, especially with the Pirates. They themselves being in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of opening area. Recognize that Luke Weaver was a nice pickup for this team, and I do think that Camilo Doval upgrade them a little bit, but you still have out there a guy in Gregory Soto who's got like a 350 ERA. Lake Bacher, he's a guy from UW Whitewater, shout out to him, but I don't necessarily think that he's the answer for this team. They've had to mix and match with both hitching back Paul Skeen, so like the over and the Dodgers on the run line. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. It's Rays. They're going to be on the road against the Orioles as Trevor Rogers is in the neighborhood for the Orioles, and you've got Freddie Peralta going for the Rays. The Rays do find themselves as an underdog, plus 109 to a plus 118. Between minus 125 to a minus 138 is that number on Baltimore. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 110 to a minus 120. Over is between even and minus 110, and I'm going to be in on the Orioles on the money line. Set them at a minus 129. For Freddie Peralta, my gosh, things have just went straight down the toilet bowl for him. He's been a little bit better here with the Tampa Bay Rays, and that's mainly because in his last 7 starts with the New York Mets, he had given up more runs than he had innings pitched. And you still take a look at the last 10 starts for him, because like overall for the season, 5.27 ERA is bad, but if you want to know really, really bad, just take a look at things ever since June 15th. In his last 10 starts, the team is actually 4-6 in them, which is a miracle, but he's given up 45 runs in 45 innings. Now, only 39 were earned, but he's given up 2 home runs per 9 innings. Overall for the season, he's experienced a career low, just hair above 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He just has not been effective whatsoever. And for Trevor Rogers, if you look at the overall season numbers, they're still not necessarily sterling. A 4.15 ERA, the one thing he's doing a great job of inducing soft contact, only about 7.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he is only giving up about 2.5 walks per 9 innings, and then 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. He's been able to keep the ball in the yard, but he's just really been suffering from the fact that first 2 months out of the season, going into the month of June, he's posting up a 6.84 ERA. Last 13 starts since the beginning of the month of June, 2.45 ERA, 5 home runs allowed in 77 innings, and he's backed up by a bullpen that has been in the top 8 in the big leagues in terms of ERA ever since June 1st. Now, for the Rays, they've been a top 10 bullpen since June 1st as well, so both of these teams in relatively good form there. Uncle Rico Garcia, Yunier Cano have been able to both give you a sub-350 ERA. We've seen a little bit of regression out of these guys, but Alex Hoppe, ever since he's gotten to Baltimore, after he really struggled with the Mariners, has been relatively okay. Josh Walker is giving you some good innings, as he and Andrew Kittredge, both below a 4 ERA after Kittredge was just awful to begin the season. He's rounded into form. And then for the Orioles, you do need these guys to be able to move the line a little bit more, because Pete Alonso is starting to pick it up. 29 home runs, 360 on base. He's starting to live up to that contract. And then you do have someone like a Colby Mayo up to 17 home runs. Gunnar Henderson, he's been able to give you 20 bombs as well, but neither guy gives you over a 305 on base, especially Mayo with a 275 on base. Now, it's been a nice little bit of a revelation that Jackson Holliday has been getting on base a little bit more. He's up to about a 333 on base. And then when you've had him in the fold, and he's back now, Samuel Basayo, 16 home runs and less than 300 bats, that's relatively solid. But, Tavares is only like a 230. Just haven't been able to get a lot of Tyler O'Neill. Carlos Cervantes with his team is hitting less than a 100, so it's not great to say the least. And on the flip side of things, you have a Tampa Bay Rays team that really has your three main matchers. Junior Caminero being the biggest of them, 35 home runs, has been absolutely incredible, but he, Jonathan Aranda, Yandy Diaz, all these at 362 on base. Diaz is up to 19 bombs, 15 for Aranda. And then Cedric Mullins does give you 13 home runs, no on base whatsoever, so that's been an issue. But Chandler Simpson, 35 stolen bases, and it's above a 300. Even some of these guys like Richie Palacios has been able to give you about a 340 on base. You've had Nick Fortes, Johnny DeLuca be able to move line. And when it comes to this Rays bullpen, much of it is former Orioles. As you've got Tyler Wells, Brian Baker, both out there now. Wells seen his ERA go above a 350, and Garrett Clevenger has as well. But Kevin Kelly, Baker, Boozer, these have been guys that have been relatively solid. So fascinating circumstance. I think that Freddie Peralta continues to get tagged. So like the Orioles on the money line, set the man on minus 129. I like the over. Somebody tell it at 8.7. 913, 914 on the card. The Yankees are going to be playing us to the Blue Jays. Right now, the betting board reads to be determined against to be determined. So that makes things very interesting. We do know that Cam Schlittler should be getting the start here for the New York Yankees. Fangraphs was projecting that Spencer Arrighetti, no, not Mom Spaghetti, was going to be getting the start here for the Blue Jays. Other places were reporting that it was going to be Simeon Woods Richardson, and that's going to be big, because if you get Spencer Arrighetti, I'm willing to take the plus 185 that we're seeing right now. If it's Simeon Woods Richardson, maybe a little bit less so. So this is a game that has a little bit of TBD based on the Blue Jays pitching situation. Now, if you do get Simeon Woods Richardson as a little bit of a bulk guy, that's actually not bad. Like for Simeon Woods Richardson, he coming out of the bullpen for this bunch has been really, really good. Since getting to Toronto, his ERA is a 0.59. Now, it's over the course of 15 and a third innings, so very small sample size there, and the fielding independent of a 3.67 because he's gotten 5.3 strikeouts, 5.3 walks per 9 innings, doing for a lot of aggression, but hey, he's been plenty effective for the team, so that's good. Again, I will be willing to fade him if he actually is a bulk guy in this case, and if you get Spencer Arrighetti, I mean, he's a guy with a 4.60 ERA, but now he's on the Blue Jays. He hasn't made a start in about a month or so. Last time he was out there, he was still a part of the Astros at the time. It was on the 24th of July, and was posting up a 4.60 ERA, 5.06 fielding independent after a really lucky start to the season, as he's given up a lot of walks, 5.1 walks per 9 innings, has regressed, but still has good swing and miss stuff with about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. I'd be willing to back him in this case. I would not be willing to back Woods Richardson because Cam Schlittler, even though he does have some wackadoo home and road splits overall for the season, before we get into the splits, 2.19 ERA, 11.2 strikeouts, 2 walks per 9 innings. In my opinion, he's right there with Dylan Cease for that American League Cy Young Award, but at home, he's been quite a bit more mortal. A 3.95 home ERA, 1.14 ERA away from home. Away from home, less than 0.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings, closer to about 1.2, 1.3 home runs per 9 innings when he is at home. Some interesting ordeal there. And for the Blue Jays, it is a bullpen that is relatively solid, whether you get Woods Richardson or if you get Spencer Arrighetti. Either way, you're going to be seeing a lot of the bullpen. Spencer Miles has been a long guy that's been able to give you a sub-335 ERA. Tyler Rogers, Louis Varland, these are two guys that would be able to supply a sub-250 ERA. Braden Fisher has been solid. Brandon Little has not been, so going to be interesting to see what they go with here. And then on the other end of things, the Yankees have been really good with their bullpen. So many of these guys, like a David Bennar, Paul Blackburn, Fernando Cruz, have all been able to give you a sub-325 ERA. So I like what they're showing there. And when it comes to this Yankees team, the biggest thing is they're just not producing a lot of offense. It's an offense that is averaging about 3.5 runs per game over the course of their last 46 games. Ben Rice continues to give you 32 plus home runs, but his on-base percentage has dipped to a 344. You look at the projected starting lineup for yesterday, only guy above a 314 on base aside from Ben Rice is George Lombard Jr., and that's a very small sample size. Look, it's solid. And Luis Garcia, 20 plus home runs this far this season, but pretty much all but one of them came with the Washington Nationals. Catcher spot has been a nightmare. Spencer Jones, Ryan McMahon, a lot of guys are just on moving line for the team. And then on the flip side of things for the Blue Jays, they continue to be a bottom 5 offense. In terms of run creation, they did get ignited in that series against the Toronto Blue Jays, but you still have a situation where you've only got one guy on the roster with over 12 home runs. Kazuma Okamoto went deep once again yesterday for home run number 26 of the campaign, and don't call his name out, Yonder Kirk has been relatively solid. He's come off the injury list up to a 355 on base. Des Cameron, in a small sample size, has looked solid. He's always had a little bit of upside in his career. You've got McAdoo on the infield, who's been a young guy, who's been able to step up, so there's maybe a little bit of promise even with having Flagger Jr. currently out of the fold. If it's Simeon Woods Richardson, I'd probably be looking at the run line of the New York Yankees, where if you're looking to lay a run half right now with the New York Yankees, you're going to be finding that right around about even money to plus 102. If you do get the Spencer Arrighetti, I set this money line price at a plus 168, so I would be willing to take the plus 184 that I'm seeing right now out there with them. For the Yankees, I'm seeing a minus 235, so if you get Arrighetti, going to be in on the Blue Jays on the money line. If you get Simeon Woods Richardson, in on the Yankees run line, and either way, in on the over with Arrighetti. Set my total at 7.8. If it's Woods Richardson, 8 or less, going to be in on the over. 9:15, 9:16 on the card. You've got the Angels. They're going to be on the road against the Walker Texas Rangers. Boy, they made this one fun for me, as right now the betting board reads to be determined versus to be determined, which is why the lines for this game are to be determined. So this game is completely off the board. Now, according to Fangraphs and ESPN, we should be knowing what the pitching matchup is going to be. Reed Detmers going against Mackenzie Gore, and if this is the case, I set the Rangers at a minus 145, so minus 144 or better. Going to be looking there, plus 146 or better, and on the Angels, and set a total of a 7.7, 7.5 or less, like the over an 8 or higher to the under. For the Angels, are actually averaging more than a full run per game more away from home rather than at home, close to about 3.7 runs per game at home, closer to 4.7 runs per game when they're away from home, but post All-Star break, it just has not mattered where they have been. This is a unit that is averaging less than 3 runs per game since the All-Star break, and no longer is that a small sample size. That's now like a month-plus sample size. You do have 2 guys with 20 home runs, Mike Trout and Zach Neto, but it feels like they've been on 20 home runs for quite a while. And for Trout, even though he gives you like a 370 to a 380 on base, only hitting at 240 himself, you've had Wade Meckler start to regress, still hitting at 285, and then Nolan Schuenel moves the line 355 on base, but when he sits by Steros has been about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. Tyler Heineman hitting below the middle line 200, Adam Frazier 1 home run and 98 at bats. Josh Lowe does have 10 home runs, but his on base percentage is also very low. For the Angels, the bullpen has honestly not been the world's worst, as you've got these guys like Jose Fermin, Luke Murphy, they just got Ben Joyce back, all supplying a sub-350 ERA, but Sammy Natera, who's been good in this bullpen alongside Bachman, both have a sub-375 ERA. They now land on the injury list, which means that you're going to get more of these schlub guys are absolutely awful. They're kicking the tires on Michael Fulmer right now, so that's not a place where you want to be. And on the flip side of things for the Texas Rangers, they've been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, really over the last 3 or so months. You still do have Jacob Junis, Jacob Latz, and Tyler Alexander. These have all been guys who have been able to give you a sub-350 ERA. Peyton Gray is starting to experience some regression, though. He's above a 380 ERA. Robbie Alstrom has not been impressing me, and Jordan Montgomery is just a human white flag at this point. He should not be out there in any circumstance whatsoever. For Mackenzie Gore, has been significantly better when he has been at home rather than away from home. And while he's got a 445 ERA, fielding dependent is more in that neighborhood, about a 375. The swing and miss stuff has been plenty good for him. He's hovering right around about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. But again, when he's at home, 327 ERA. At home, he's giving up a hair above 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but the walks drop significantly. At home, he's giving up less than 2.7 walks per 9 innings. Away from home, that's hovering more in the neighborhood, about 3.8, 3.9 walks per 9 innings, and the ERA goes up to a 542. And when it comes to this Rangers lineup, it should be a little bit more formidable moving forward. They've been a bottom 10 team in terms of run creation, but now you've got Corey Seager looking relatively solid. He, since coming off the injury list, has really raised that average, so I like what I'm seeing there. And then the likes of Ezekiel Duran, Justin Foscue, Brandon Nimmo, don't call his name Alejandro Azuna. These are all guys giving you a relatively solid on base. Nimmo and Duran, both 13 home runs apiece. You've been able to have even someone like a Nicky Lopez hit above a 270, while Langford is moving line for the team as well. So fascinating circumstance here with a guy in Reed Detmers, who, again, I feel like he's been one of the most unlucky pitchers in all of baseball. He's surrounded by an Angels just defense in general that has not helped him out, because While he does have a 3.78 ERA, that fielding depends more around about a 3.28, 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's only giving up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, and he's been able to rectify some of the command issues as well. About 2.7 walks per 9 innings when he has been away from him thus far this season. The ERA has went up to a 4.19, but still has been able to do an okay job keeping things out in front of him. So minus 144 or better looking at the Rangers, plus 146 or better the Angels. 7.5 or less like the over, 8 or higher the under. 9:17, 9:18 on the card. You've got the Athletics. They're going to be on the road against the Houston Astros, as Hayden Wesneski is going to be on the bump for the Astros, and JT Gin and Juice is on the bump for the Athletics. The Athletics do find themselves as a good-sized underdog here, anywhere between plus 165 to a plus 175. Meanwhile, minus 190 to minus $2. The undermine Houston, 8.5 is the total. Unders minus 110 to a minus 120. The overs between even and minus 110. We're looking to lay a run half right now with the Astros. That's between plus 115 to a plus 118, and even money or better was going to put me in on the Astros on the run line. I set their money line price at a minus 194, and for the Athletics, it's just hard to trust in this team. They couldn't even hit the Royals yesterday because they're without their top 3 home run hitters right now. You're without Nick Kurtz, Shea Langoliers, Tyler Soderstrom. That really leaves you hampered. Zach Aloff has been able to give you 14 home runs, and he's hitting for about a 330 on base right now. Jeff McNeil, he's been able to about a 260 along Carlos Cortez. Henry Bolte is about a 270, but there's really not any power with this team. They're just a banged-up bunch. They're begging and pleading for anything whatsoever, and it's a bullpen that has been just so awful. A north of 6.50 ERA since June 1st. Now they're looking to someone like a Taylor Rossi, who's got an ERA above a 7. Elvis Alvarado's in the building with over a 4 ERA. I will say Hogan Harris has been able to give you a sub 3.75 ERA, but even he had a slip up over the weekend. You've got Brady Basso, who's not been great to say the least, so I mean, it's not good there. And JT Ginn has probably been your best starter this far this season, a 3.53 ERA, but fielding dependence well above a 4, and he's one of the few guys that actually doesn't have demonstrative home and road splits. 3.58 home ERA, 3.49 ERA on the road, and on the road he has been giving up over 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. Goes up against the Houston Astros lineup that has Yordan Alvarez, who just continues to be absolutely amazing. 36 bombs, 430 on base. Now, some of the guys towards the bottom of the fold, you need a little bit more from the mix and match outfielders like Lamont Wade Jr., Taylor Trammell, Zach Cole, Zach DeZenzo, Cam Smith, the currently injured Bryce Matthews. You go down the list of guys and get 230 or lower. Heck, even Dalton Varsho. You just need a bit more there. Smith is hitting for 17 home runs, so that helps out the team a little bit, but still, you're going to need these guys to be able to step up. But Isaac Paredes, 16 bombs, and he's been able to give you about a 350 on base. Jeremy Pena hitting just below a 300. He's been able to do a nice job putting back to bottom for the Houston Astros. This has been a very dominant bullpen. Ever since June 1st, they've been a top 5 team in terms of bullpenning right now. You do have a few guys that are regressing. Brian King is up to about a 4 ERA. Año de los Santos has just had a season to forget in. While Brian Abreu still has an ERA that's well above a 4 for the season, you look at him over the last 45 days, he's been supplying well less than a 3 ERA, so he's been able to straighten things out as well. And even AJ Blubaugh as a long guy, he's been able to do a pretty solid job for this unit as well. And when it comes to Hayden Wesneski throughout his career with the Houston Astros, as he has only had a few cups of coffee at the big league level, he is giving up about 1.5 to 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, keeps the walks down, less than 2.5 walks per 9 innings, but he does pitch a lot of contact in general. Only question is, are the Athletics actually going to be able to make some contact here with the Astros? I do like them on the run line, and I do think that they get to this just awful bullpen to do enough to be able to get you the over. So I did set my total at 8.6. I'm going to be in on the over, and I do like laying run half on the run line here with the Houston Astros. 9:19, 9:20 on the card. It is the Detroit Tigers. They're going to be on the road against the Kansas City Royals, as Troy Moulton is on the bump for the Tigres, and Noah Cameron goes for the Kansas City Royals. Royals are anywhere between even money to plus 106 on the money line, and between minus 115 to minus 121 for Detroit. The total is 8.5. Over is minus 110 to a minus 115. Under is minus 105 to a minus 110, and when it comes to the Tigers, did set them out of minus 126. I'm going to be willing to take them on the money line. Now, Noah Cameron is actually rounded into great form. He did have a little bit of a slip up in his start on the road against the LA Dodgers. That's just going to happen to you. But I mean, he has given up 0 or 1 earned runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts after he was just having a disastrous June into early July. But that said, 358 fielding dependent, 416 ERA indicates that he's pitched better than what the ERA would show. Only about 2.8 walks, 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And the home and road splits are very demonstrative because we were noticing it with the Royals. They're dead last in the big leagues in terms of run creation away from home with about 3.6 runs per game, averaging more than a full run per game at home. And I mean, he's posting up a 5.17 ERA at home, more like a 3.33 ERA away from home. And I do firmly believe that Troy Melton is doing for a lot of aggression here with the Tigers. 171 ERA, but a 355 fielding independent, 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 7.8 strikeouts per 9. He has given up 5 earned runs, 6 runs in total over the course of his last 5 starts. Did get had a little bit more by the Chicago White Sox in his last time out, but he's been incredible. While I do think that he's doing for regression, I'm still willing to back this team because, for one, they just have the far better bullpen. For the Royals, having the Carlos Aceves injury has just absolutely destroyed them this season. Then you have so many of these guys like Lucas Ursadge, Steven Cruz, along with Matt Strom, who I'm pretty sure has landed on the injured list once again because that's where he's been all season long. Whole bunch of guys are supplying an ERA well above a 4. They're rolling the dice on Craig Kimbrell. John Schreiber's been able to give you a sub 350 ERA, but Nate Pearson, he's been supplying a sub 275 ERA. They had to use him up yesterday. And then for the Tigers, since June 1st, top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Bullpen Madness is back for this team as Ty Madden has actually been a really nice bulk guy for them. Additionally, you've been able to get great production out of a Tyler Holton, who's been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Kyle Finnegan is starting to regress a little bit, but Jacob Yeaspack, he has come from out of nowhere. He's been able to supply the team with a sub 2 ERA. He's able to give you multiple innings, and for the Tigers, this is a much more formidable lineup than they were even just a month or two ago. They were dealing with Avi Baez, along with Gleyber Torres being on the injury list, and recognize that Avi Baez, since coming off the injury list, has not necessarily been effective, but I mean, compared to some of these guys like James Outman, along with Wencio Perez, who he's currently on the injury list, Matt Vierling, Zach McKinstry, he's a massive upgrade there. So Riley Green, who's been a little bit banged up himself recently, give you a 365 on base. Kevin McGonigal, he's stepped up about a 380 on base out of him. Dylan Dingler's up to 26 home runs. Spencer Torkelson, not a lot of on base, but he's supplying 20 home runs as well. And then you've been able to have Cole Keith do a nice job in terms of moving the line as well. And then on the flip side for the Kansas City Royals, Jack Caglione is a guy that's really starting to step up. No hangover from the home run derby for him. He's up to 22 home runs, supplying a solid on base. And Bobby Witt Jr., know what to expect out of him. 360 on base, 16 home runs. He has been the modicum of consistency for the team. To have Salvador Perez up to 16 home runs, but again, still only about a 265 or so with that on base. You've got Vinny Pasquantino coming off the injury list. He's been better since then, but I mean, he's had himself a rough season. He's only supplied 7 home runs and like 300 plus at bats, so you need a bit more there. And you do have guys moving the line. Like, I mean, even a guy like a Miguel Garcia is hitting about a 270 for the team. John Rave, when he's gotten at bats, has not been bad. Tyler Tolbert is hitting at 300, but no power whatsoever. So interesting circumstance here. I do like the Tigers on the money line. I'm willing to go up to a minus 125 there. I do like the over, so my total 9.2. 921, 922 on the card. It is the Giants. They're going to be on the road against the Red Sox as Sonny Gray hopes to have a sunny day here for the Red Sox. And you've got one Mr. Logan Webb going for the Giants. Giants between plus 144 to a plus 157 price. Meanwhile, minus 165 to minus 181 is that number for Boston. Right now, we're seeing a lot of 7.5 totals out there with the over at a minus 120, the unders even. Seeing some 8s as well. Over and under are both at minus 110, and whether you've got a 7.5 or an 8, I'm going to be in on the over. I did set my total at an 8.1. We talked about it with our good friend Tanner Kern, the fact that for Logan Webb, his home and road splits are not as demonstrative this year as they have been in the past, but still, for his career, he has posted up an ERA darn near a full point higher when he is away from home rather than when he's at home, right around about a 293 career ERA at home, more around about a 391 when he's away from home, might budge by like a hundredth of a point or something like that, but relatively in line with that. And for Logan Webb, you take a look at him over the last 2 months since the beginning of the month of July, he has posted up a sub 3 ERA, comes in good form. He has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 4 starts, but he's experiencing a career low 7.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. So that is something that needs to be very much monitored. He's had 4 strikeouts or fewer and now 3 out of his last 5 starts. And for Sonny Gray, he's a little bit down with his swing and miss stuff as well. For Sonny Gray, posting up a really nice 265 ERA, but the 348 fielding dependent point source a little bit of regression. The 7.9 strikeouts per 9 innings are the lowest that he's had since the 2016 campaign. And for Sonny Gray, when he's been out there in Boston, he's been able to do a pretty exceptional job at home. 245 ERA compared to a 282 ERA away from home, and he is backed up by a bullpen that, even though it's a little bit banged up, having Garrett Woodlock out of the fold, it's still been a bullpen that has been either number 1 or number 2 with they and the New York Yankees jockeying for that number 1 spot in all baseball this season. The likes of a Teron Guerrero, Eric Miller, who they picked up at the trade deadline, Giovanni Morin. I'll give you a sub 335 ERA. Obviously, Aroldis Chapman has been able to do an incredible job as well. And you take a look at this Red Sox team ever since the All-Star break, and the offense has really been able to ignite. Prior to the All-Star break, they were just doing absolutely absolutely nothing on offense at home. They were actually significantly better when they were away from home with their offense, but you take a look at what they've been able to do ever since the All-Star break, and they've been averaging more than 5 runs per game overall. Why they were brave since the break, 11 home runs, that's a top 3 mark in all of baseball, 350 on base in that time span. Caleb Durbin has been hitting above a 300 ever since the break. Cedon Rafael has had 8 home runs since the break as well. Wilson Contreras, he's been solid overall for the season, still above a 380 on base. He's only got 5 home runs since the break, so they've really been doing it without him. Masataka Yoshida is able to give you over 340 on base. So I haven't gotten a lot out of Jaron Duran, but still, a lot of guys have been able to step up for this team. Even Jahmai Jones, ever since he's gotten in the fold, he's been nice as well. And then for the Giants, I do think that they're going to be able to put up a few runs. They average about 4.1 runs per game away from home. You've got Rafael Devers, who's up to 24 plus home runs, about a 320 on base. William Thomas no on base whatsoever, but hey, 20 home runs is 20 home runs. Jung-Ho Lee has been able to about a 295 for the team. And then you've got some of the mix and match guys like Victor Barracoto, Levis Bosby, who I actually think have quite a bit of upside. They've shown some promise here. Bryce Eldridge continues to give you a 340 on base, but it's also a Giants team that is now a group that is in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. They trade away Eric Miller to, ironically enough, the Boston Red Sox. Now you still do have JT Brubaker, Dylan Smith, Sam Antiges. I'll give you a sub 350 ERA, but now Keaton Winland's back on the injury list. It's been rough for every year. Sid Martin and Carson Seymour, both of these guys over 550 ERA. So do think that the Red Sox should be able to do a nice job getting to Webb and getting the job done. I set my money line price at a minus 167. I was willing to take a plus 122 or better lying run half right now, seeing that between plus 130 to a plus 135. So on the Red Sox lying run half on the run line, and the total to the over. Somebody told it 80.1, 923, 924 on the card. It is the Mets. They're going to be on the road against the White Sox. Sean Burke goes for the White Sox. Sean Menez on the bump for the Mets. In the battle, Sean, it is the Mets that are plus 123 to plus 130 underdogs. Minus 140 to minus 155 for the White Sox. 7.5 to 8 is the total on the 7.5 overs minus 120. The unders even on the 8 unders minus 120 overs even money, and good to be in on the over. I did somebody total here at an 8.3 for Sean Manaea. He just hasn't really been great recently for the team. I'm not going to call him like completely off or anything like that. 4.22 ERA, 4.28 fielding dependent, 1.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, in the neighborhood about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and to his credit, 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. And for the New York Mets, without Juan Soto in the fold, they were averaging 4.05 runs per game prior to his injury, closer to about 4.8 runs per game without him. You've had Carson Benj at a 275, double-figure amount of homers, Francisco Alvarez, double-figure amount of bombs. He's been able to do a solid job, give you about a 340 or so on base. You continue to have A.J. Ewan moving the line. You've been able to get a little bit more out of Bo Bichette, so that's relatively solid, but they trade away their entire bullpen at the trade deadline, like Luke Weaver, Oscar Brisbane, who's ironically enough now on the Chicago White Sox, and they're going to be facing off against them. List goes on and on of these guys. So now you're looking at Jeffrey Young, who jumps after every single strikeout. Godai Senga, who still has an ERA above a 7, and now they're playing beat it whenever he's at home trying to close out games. So that's been interesting to say the least. And on the flip side for the Chicago White Sox, this does continue to be a top 7 team in terms of run creation, completely shut down yesterday, but trio of guys, Colson Montgomery, Montaki Murakami, along with Miguel Vargas, who have all been able to supply at least 25 home runs for the team. Now for Montgomery, less than a 300 base, so you need to work on that end. It's not like Vargas and Murakami are hitting for a high average. Murakami just a 227, but 363 on base, and then a 347 on base compared to a 240 average for Miguel Vargas. But you've been able to have Tristan Peters hit at 270. You've got some relatively good production here out of Randall Grichuk hitting a 275. Sam Antonacci at 365 on base. And for the White Sox, since June 1st, this has become one of the best bullpens in all of baseball. They've been a top 10 team here, actually more like a top 8 team with Sean Newcomb, Brisbane, who I mentioned before, Brian Hudson, Grant Taylor. They're all give you a sub 325 ERA. Even Jordan Hicks is starting to round into form as well, so you do like to see that. And for the New York Mets, I do think that they're going to be facing an uphill battle against a guy in Sean Burke that has really rounded into form for this team. A 3.15 ERA. The strikeout stuff has very much been there for him. He's up right around about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. Gives up 1 home run per 9 innings, and at home 3.22 ERA compared to a 3.05 ERA away from home. But even at home, still only giving up about 1 home run per 9 innings, less than 2.5 walks per 9 innings. I do think that the White Sox go out there, get the job done. I like the over. I did set my total here at an 8.3 for the White Sox. And on their money line, set it at a minus 156, 925, 926. The Guardians are going to be on the road facing off against the Rockies as Tanner Gordon goes for the Rockies and Joey Cantillo, he goes for the Guardians. Guardians are a favorite here between a minus 153 to a minus 162, plus 130 to plus 135 for Colorado. 10.5 to 11 is the total on the 10.5 overs minus 120. The unders even, and on the 11, the under is minus 115, the over is minus 105, and I'm going to take this over. I did set my total at an 11.7 fully recognize that if you look at the season numbers for the Cleveland Guardians, not great on offense to say the least. They've been a bottom 5 team in terms of run creation, but I just still have zero faith whatsoever in Tanner Kern, who's been mostly utilized as a bullpen piece this year, and regardless of if he's been a starter or if he's been coming out of the bullpen, has not been a great run from 5.55 ERA. He's giving up about 1.9 home runs per 9 innings. One thing I can say for him is that the command has actually been quite good. He only gives up about 1.6 walks per 9 innings, but not really deceptive stuff with 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. And if you look at him, what he's been a starter this far this season, that ERA goes up to a 6.26 with 6 bombs allowed in 23 innings. Meanwhile, Joey Cantillo, he does have a bit of a walks issue. He's been able to maintain a 3.80 ERA with the fact that he's been able to get a whole bunch of swings and misses. His strikeout per 9 rate is currently at a 10. He's been able to overcome the 4.2 walks and 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and he does get to face off against a Rockies team that is dealing with a few injuries, Hunter Goodman really being the main of them. He was missing for the entire series against the Dodgers, and he's been registering over 33 home runs this season. Actually, it's hit more home runs away from home rather than at home, ironically enough. Still have some solid pieces here, though. Mickey Moniak has been able to give you 19-plus home runs. He's hitting about a 265 to a 270 for the unit. Cool Carrick, Jake McCarthy, Troy Johnson, a whole bunch of guys hitting above a 275. While the wallop might not be there with a lot of these guys, the Rockies have done a good job in terms of finding guys moving the line towards the bottom of the fold. You're going to need to get a little bit more out of some of these guys like an Ezekiel Tovar whenever he's been out there, as I know that he's been dealing with quite a bit of injury this far this season. Additionally, Jordan Beck has not necessarily been amazing, but I mean, the bigger thing is this Rockies bullpen. Well, it is very, very rocky. Jordan Romano, since joining the Rockies, has not been bad, but overall for the season, he, Jay Nill, Juan Mejia, Jimmy Harrigan, Nick Frazo, a whole bunch of guys with over a 4.50 ERA. Brandon Bernardino's been very solid. He's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, so that's good. And when it comes to Gordon, you have to wonder how much length he's going to be able to provide. Now, out of the bullpen, he was consistently giving you 3+ innings, but this is going to be a little bit of a different role for him. And on the flip side for the Cleveland Guardians, really got going with their offense in that series against the San Francisco Giants. They made a nice few additions at the trade deadline. Joe Adell setting fire to the rain, 17+ home runs this season. Really doesn't give you a lot of on base, but Stephen Kwan, after he was miserable to start the season, post All-Star break, well above a 425 on base overall for the season, at 372 on base. For the small sample size that he's had, he's been very rock solid, about a 400 on base for Anel Genoa, so that's been a nice addition for the team. Brian Rocchio is starting to regress, but you've still been able to have a guy in Austin Hedges, who for his career has been an awful hitter. Be solid, and Nathaniel Lowe has been rock solid as well. Guardians are a top half of the big league team in terms of bullpen area, though we are starting to see some shakiness with these guys like Eric Sabrowski, Hunter Gaddis, Craig Yoho. They're all above a 3.50 ERA, and right now Colin Holderman is dealing with a little bit of an injury rate as well, so I think they get a higher scoring game for the Guardians. I set their run line price at a -117 right now. They'll lay a run half with them. You're getting that anywhere between even money to -102. I'm going to be willing to lay the run line, and I'm going to be in on this total to the over, so my total at 11.7, 927, 928 on the card. It's the Padres. They are going to be playing us to the Minnesota Twins. Connor Prielipp is going to be the starter for Minnesota, and right now the betting board reads to be determined for the Padres. I know that earlier Fangraphs was saying that Joe Musgrove might be able to return. From the reports I'm hearing, I don't think that we're going to get Joe Musgrove. I'm thinking that you're going to get Randy Vasquez and a poo-poo platter of pitchers in this game, and if that's the case, I'd be willing to lay up to a -150 with the Padres, plus 150 to or better. Looking at the Twins, and then set a total of an 8.6, 8.5 or less. I'm going to be in on the over, a 9 or higher to the under. Really wouldn't change too much if you get Joe Musgrove, because he hasn't pitched all season long. It would be his first start out there on the big league level, and you just have to wonder what he's going to be able to do there. But when it comes to Connor Prielipp, he's been able to get some good swing and miss here for the Minnesota Twins, but has been having a command issue, 3.7 walks per 9 innings, 5.34 ERA, 4.12 fielding dependent. Even though you do add AJ Minter, Jeff Hoffman at the trade deadline to be able to revamp this bullpen, you've also had Yandris Gomez, since he's been a member of the Twins, be able to give you a sub 3.35 ERA for this unit as well. It's a team that overall for the season is 26th in terms of bullpen ERA, and for the San Diego Padres, post All-Star break, over 5 runs per game. I know that they got cooled down a little bit out there in New York, but Fernando Tatis Jr., he had 5 home runs prior to the All-Star break. He's got 10 since the All-Star break. Ty France has really been able to pick it up here in the second half of the season. Both he and Jackson Merrill are both hitting well above a 300 since the All-Star break for France. Overall for the season, a 350 on base, 17 home runs. You've got Mr. Merrill, who's up to 19 bombs this season. You've had Manny Machado supply 24 home runs. Batting average still not there in Xander Bogaerts. You and Gavin Sheets, they need to give you a little bit more, but still, lineup has been much better here recently. Padres are third in the National National League in terms of bullpen ERA. We all know what Mason Miller is going to be able to provide, and the Jason Adam injury has been hurting this team a little bit, but still, the likes of Audrey Marhone, Yuki Matsui, Bradley Rodriguez, they've all been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Jeremiah Estrada coming off the injury list has been a little bit up and down, but he and Wandy Peralta still very rock-solid options for Vasquez. Getting into him, assuming that he gets some sort of role in this game. 4.30 ERA, a little bit of higher fielding dependent. Does an okay job in terms of not giving up a lot of walks, only about 2.6, 2.7 walks per 9 innings, but he does allow about 1.2 to 1.3 home runs per 9 innings with a 5.30 ERA. And for the Twins, Byron Buxton just hasn't really been himself since coming off the injury list. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries all season long, though you are having some of these guys really, like a Brooks Lee step up, give the team over 17 home runs. He's hitting about a 250. You're not going to get any sort of on base whatsoever out of Cody Clemens, but he's up to 20 plus home runs as far this season. You've had Lucas Shaw move the line, give you about a 365 on base. And Josh Bell, ever since the beginning of the month of June, well above a 330 on base out of him. He's up to 17 home runs. An interesting spot here. Like I said, 8.5 or less, like the over 9 or higher to the under with the Padres and Vasquez, minus 150 or better, looking at the money line, plus 152 or better, looking at the Twins. Wrap things up with 959, 960 on the card. The Mariners are going to be playing against the Cubs. Emerson Hancock for the Mariners gets the start, and Matthew Boyd for the Cubs. Cubs are in a relatively pick-em sort of situation here, and we're between minus 105 to a minus 110 for both teams. 8 is the total, under is minus 115, the over is minus 105. I do like the under. I set my total at 7.4. Just not inspiring offense right now from the Seattle Mariners. Out of 30 teams, they are currently a nice hearty 30th in terms of run creation with about 3.9 runs per game. Cal Raleigh still hitting below a 175, but I do think that Brandon Donovan coming back is going to help this team move the line a little bit more. And you've had Randy Arozarena give you over a 375 on base. He's been highly effective for the team. He and Julio Rodriguez have both been able to give you 14 plus home runs. Dom Canzone is up to 19 bombs with about a 340 on base. You look at the individual pieces, and while they're maybe not completely knocking your socks off, I do think there's a little bit of positivity here for them. And they face off against a guy, Matthew Boyd, that's coming off the injury list, has only been giving the team about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. But the thing with Matthew Boyd is that he has been significantly better when he has been away from home rather than at home. For Matthew Boyd, when he has been at home, he's rocking an ERA that is in that neighborhood of a 5.44 with 2.2 home runs per 9 innings allowed, 2.57 ERA, 0.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and both of these bullpens have been relatively solid. For the Cubs, they're 10th in terms of bullpen ERA with a 3.88, even with the Daniel Palencia injury, Hobie Milner, Porter Hodge, you just go down the list. Got the likes of Jacob Webb, Ryan Rolson, Trent Thornton, who have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. And for the Mariners, we have seen Edward Bizardo, Gabe Spire be relatively solid in this bullpen. We are starting to see Jose Ferrer post up about a 350 ERA, but Andres Munoz, ever since the middle of June, he's been a much better closer after a very shaky start to the season, and I like what I'm seeing out of Emerson Hancock. 3.30 ERA, 1.1 home runs, 2.3 blocks allowed per 9 innings. Now it's a Cubs team that is number 2 in all baseball in terms of run creation with about 5.2 or so runs per contest. Obviously, Pete Armstrong, the 30-plus home runs, the dramatics that we saw in that series out there in Chicago against the White Sox, absolutely superb. And even though some of these guys may not have the world's greatest batting averages, they're finding a way to be able to get on base. Like I say, Suzuki, who's been able to give you over 20 home runs, he hits in that neighborhood like at 250 to 255, which is obviously very solid, but the on-base percentage, that's more around a 360 for him, man. Then you've got Alex Bregman, 255 average, 345 on base. Michael Busch, 242 average, 349 on base. Even Ian Happ, 20 home runs, and he needs to be better than a 214, but still, 322 on base out of him as well. So, interesting circumstance here. I do think that the travel catches up to the Cubs just a little bit here. I think that the Mariners find a way to win a slog in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. Like the under, so my total is 7.4, and with the Mariners, I'm in on the money line, set them at a minus 116, and that wraps things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to our guy Tanner Kern over at DraftKings for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe over your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at Junit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm with you guys every single day, giving you guys picks and analysis on every game, every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.